Welcome back to the review of Final Fantasy VII Remake, and this is part 2. Hope you've had a good time so far, and look forward to explaining more about how I felt about the game. Stay tuned. Following from the music, I think we'll talk about the visuals and the reimagining. Now, I understand that Advent Children had already been out as well, so it's been out for a long time, you know, and we already seen these characters in their new sort of skins. Let's put it that way. From very much like the original game, which was like blocky types, and that was the best, you know, that was amazing back then. Obviously there were other games in the PS1 that had better character looking sort of character models, but Final Fantasy, I think that was part of the appeal to Final Fantasy VII at the time, that little blocky hands and everything. But we already kind of knew what to expect and what Barret and Tifa and Cloud, you know, we had minimal expectation of what they looked like because we'd seen them on Advent Children, and I guess their clothes change and you know, their hair changed or whatever, but the overall look, I kind of knew what I was expecting going in, and yeah, great looking game, great looking characters, the battle, everything around, so the colours, the lighting, kind of breathtaking, really. I can kind of see why they had to split this game into parts, because the level of production, the level of detail just on this Midgar portion alone fills in many games into one. When you look at all the lights, everything that's happening around you, I don't know how many people were in that team, but surely there had to be hundreds here, there, and everywhere, split apart, just making these little bits, little tweaks, and making this game look the way it does. I think I'm not the only one I'm not alone when I say that visually it blew a lot of people away. I can't really fault like how good the game looks as soon as you pick up Cloud, and the seamless, the transformation between the actual CG cutscenes into gameplay. You know, all of a sudden you're watching a video and you know, they're talking, and then all of a sudden the camera just pans across Cloud's back and you're fighting all of a sudden without even noticing that when the transformation kind of happened. They really did a great job. I saw like some reviews of the technical side of things, and I think it was Digital Foundry was saying the game pretty much is balanced at 30 frames per second, allowing for that continuously, like that beautiful action to manifest itself on screen without any delay, without anything happening there that would cause you to detract from your experience, you know, to what's happened there. They said that Final Fantasy VII, as far as that's concerned, really they didn't have much negative stuff to say around that, apart from the fact, and a couple of people have obviously picked up, that some of the assets are not loading as they should. So you're running around, and every now and again, I think it's in the Sector 7 slums, I don't know if it happens everywhere else, but you're kind of running, and then you kind of get close to it, and then the assets are still loading, and then, you know, the shaders are still loading, and that is a bit strange. I personally, I think because I was so involved in the game, I didn't notice it the first time around, and I've been playing it up until now in the hard mode, and I guess it's because I wasn't looking for it. They did point out though that there's certain parts, so say certain parts of certain assets are polished and they look the part, and you know, that looks like real wood or that looks like metal, but then you go to certain other parts and maybe it was just a little bit of attention to detail, I don't know, but the doors they look really bad. You know, I think is it where Cloud and Tifa sleep, where they spend the night in Sector 7, the doors are just awful. Like, with the doors they use to get into their rooms, they just don't look like they fit in a game. Again, I noticed that now when I was playing it after watching those reviews, but at the time I didn't. Okay, and I think that's only because, again, I'm so involved in the experience of playing the game that I didn't see it. But I think that when you look, you can pick on these things, and it's fine. It is what is wrong with the game ultimately, and that's the whole point. But when you look at the game, when you see the production behind it, the like I said, the lights, at night time, the city of Midgar is illuminated to such great detail, and everything just feels beautiful. Like, it just, when you're running past the light and the shadows and everything, I can't, I love it. I love it. I thought it was really great effort. I don't think there is that many games that put that much effort into lighting alone. But it really did make a big difference in showing the Midgar for what it is, this dusty, smoky, industrial area, where even in the normal city streets it looked really dark and slightly hollow almost, but then you get to the slums and it's even worse, like that down there, just bits of rubbish all over the place, makeshift houses, but the light is what really sells that, because you're walking around the little streets and there's one light on and you just walk past it and you can see your characters sort of passing through, but it's the lighting was stunning. And then you look up in the sky and you see the whole plate up top cloud, and you feel like this is amazing, the little blinking red lights all around, and simply stunning, guys. Definitely big A for me as well. I taking into consideration the little technical issues that they had with some of the assets, it still didn't detract from my experience, so I don't think it should be held against them. Maybe they knew that we'd be so mesmerized by everything else that they thought, yeah, we'll leave that in there. But ultimately, I think that all the work that they did do, and the things that they did look at, and the things that they did take care of, I think that they smashed it out of the park. Everyone was surprised by how good it looks. Everyone was surprised. So definitely visually, from a visual standpoint, I struggle. I don't know what games look that good at the moment. I play a lot of PS4 games, I'll admit, but I'm thinking just off the top of my head right now as I'm talking on a mic. I think The Last of Us Part 2 looks stunning. Okay, and maybe that's the nearest comparison I'll get to. I know that Ghost of Tsushima video just came out. That looked stunning. But I think for the level of detail and the closeness that you get to see things, it's not all about a big open world, or like you see everything as far as your eye can see, and that looks beautiful. Wow, look at that, the pretty colours. It's just about the up closeness, and you look at Cloud, and you look at Barrett, you look at Tifa, you look at a lot of the things around, especially at the beginning in the reactor, the first reactor. I think that's probably why they let us play that to begin with, because it really did look amazing. I struggled to find any faults there, and as the game goes all the way through to the very end, they kept that level of detail went from beginning to end. There wasn't like, I did think, how are they going to keep this up? But I guess 5 years plus was a long time for development, and enough time to get it right. So 5 years was definitely didn't even feel like it. The wait was long, but it didn't even feel like it for some reason. Now that I've played it, especially, it feels like all that tension has gone out of my system, and it didn't feel like I spent 5 years waiting for it. But the amount of detail, the 5 years it took to develop, I think we can see it really shows what they did, and why they took that long, and why the game needs to be split in parts. Because if they're going to give this level of detail to every single part of Final Fantasy VII Remake, then sure, why wouldn't you wait? Okay, so ultimately, I heard through a friend who had gone to the Square Enix office that before the game was released, this was the back end of last year, and he pretty much said that, well, Nomura really wanted to delay the game even further. He felt like he needed more time to finish off that game to the best of his ability. So we'll never know why he wanted to. Maybe there's more assets he wanted to make sure were rendered properly, but I think that there might have been something else that he wanted to incorporate within that first installment, and but this is what we got. I'm happy with this. So from a visual standpoint, again, A+. The story. Dun dun. Now, this is, I guess, the biggest sort of aspect of the game that we all were thinking, what are they going to do? How are they going to do it? Now, for the most part, they followed those story beats. Okay, so each story beat that happens in the original game happens in this remake, right? But they obviously incorporated these Watchmen of Fate into the game. Now, I'd like to think that these Watchmen of Fate actually have a hand in everything that happens throughout the whole Final Fantasy VII game, right? Remake, sorry. Without you even noticing. That's how I like to see it. I think that the Watchmen of Fate make themselves known, so you know that whatever you were thinking about the game, whatever you expected to happen in the game, is going to happen. Now, the way you come across each event is slightly different. There are certain parts that happen, certain things that happen within the game at each story beat that is slightly different. And generally, this means that it will be across when the story is about to deviate from the original content, the original Final Fantasy VII. And that's how they incorporate the Watchmen of Fate. The mere incorporation of them, the mere existence of these Watchmen of Fate within this game already sends the message that we know what you guys want, okay? We know that you didn't want any of this changed, so we're not really changing it. But we're gonna tweak how things happen, so you know that when you're playing this game and you're experiencing this story, that there are things that could be different, could have happened differently, and that in itself already hints that this story, this Final Fantasy VII Remake, is literally that. It's a remake, okay? But at the same time, what they've done is it knows it's kind of aware that it's a remake. I know it's really hard to explain, but I kind of want to say that it's like a parallel universe, because they know that the original game exists. They know that you, the player, want it to be as closely tied into the original game and to feel like the original game. But they also want to try something new, and I think that this first Final Fantasy, this first part, is a way to test the waters, okay, to see how people react. And there's been mixed reactions because of the ending. Now, it leaves everything open, so I'm gonna just spoil ahead, and I will put a banner saying spoilers, by the way, on this video. So my impression through every step of the way is that you pretty much play as Cloud, okay, and you're experiencing the story as you did the original for most of the time. The supporting cast, i.e. and Tifa, Barrett, so they all have connections to Cloud. Aerith, Sephiroth, they all have connections to Cloud. And the thing is by an extensive way, they have connections to you, the player, right? Every time you meet Aerith at the beginning of the game, when you see her in a church, she says and does things that make you think she's done that before. She knows what to expect. Like she's following a set course, okay? And it kind of like, when you first play it the first time, you don't see it. It's kind of like blended, mercenary, right? I guess by the big sword. Or when she talks to Tifa and she goes, you want me to go to the bar and save Marlene, right? And it's like, okay. So Aerith feels like she knows already what's going to happen, okay? She is aware of this timeline, and I think she's trying not to deviate of the main events, the main story beats all the way to the very end, okay? On the other side, it's Sephiroth. Now Sephiroth, pretty much the way I see him is he exists outside of the plane of existence. So he exists where the video games are made, okay? And he is aware of the original video game, and he's taunting you to change that, to change what happens, to join him, pretty much. He asks Cloud to join him, which is such a weird concept, okay? But it could happen in a weird way, you know. If it almost felt like towards the end Sephiroth was some kind of good guy. I don't know, it's really strange, and you'll have to play it to experience it for yourself. I know it's strange, but Cloud now, which is you the player, you play through this game, and there are major differences within some of the story beats, some of the story sections as you go along compared to the original. For the most part, it does connect each one. Sometimes how you get to each point is slightly different, but that's fine. And then there's a part which really sends the message home, and it's when Sephiroth stabs Barret and kills him up top in the Shinra building, right? That's that in itself, okay? Or even the way President Shinra dies, it's different. That in itself makes things, just changes things. It changes the course of the story. But luckily the Watchmen of Fate are there to rectify what Sephiroth has done. So what this means is Sephiroth is allowed to change the story, okay? He's allowed to change it. Obviously the Watchmen of Fate are there at that point, but what happens when Sephiroth tries to change the story in part 2? Especially now that Cloud and Co have changed, they've killed Fate pretty much. They've wanted to change things, and so they literally, you actually fight Fate in 3 different levels, and a big boss. I'm just not going to bother going through the names of what they're called, but you kill Fate, which allows the whole existence to change, all in all. So the ending pretty much sees Zack and Cloud together going back to Midgar, okay? It sees that Zack is actually alive, okay? So something's changed there. Now, will this mean that Zack is actually alive? Does it mean that as you finish the game and you killed the Fates, does this mean that people that were previously dead all of a sudden come back to life? Or people that are due to die you can stop them from dying, like Aerith in the original game? I don't know. I think, but what I do think is it really opens the game to a new enticing story, a new opportunity to tell this story in a new way for everyone. It'll be new for me, someone who's played the game back in the day. It'll be new to everyone else who's new to Final Fantasy VII. Okay, so the people that obviously had mixed feelings about the ending are people that probably like myself, who are very protective over the original content. But this is what you bought. You wanted a remake, okay? You wanted a remake. So a remake is not a remaster. A remaster is what they did with Last of Us Part 1 and Final Fantasy 9 and 8. That's a remaster, okay? It's the same game, slightly better graphics, okay? HD'd and 4K'd or whatever. Just update it to today's standards. They did pretty much remaster Final Fantasy VII as well when they completely trolled us with that announcement in 2014, I think, or was it at the end of 2014 or 2015? But a remaster by the expectations of what we wanted was the graphics that you have on the remake, the same story, same battle. Okay, that's what we wanted, I think, originally. A remake in itself is remaking things from the ground up, allowing change to happen. Okay, because like I said originally, everything's changed. Okay, and I think that I think if you ask me the question now, would I have been completely satisfied with a like-for-like Final Fantasy VII with just upgraded graphics and combat and same combat? No. I think I would have been slightly let down. I would have appreciated the work that went into it, but I think I would have been slightly let down by the fact that I've just spent another £50 or $60 on a game which is exactly the same as, except for how it looks, is exactly the same as the original game. They hit in this first part. They really break down the characters. They really show where Cloud's coming from. They show his transformation from this hardcore, tight-assed dude until you start chipping at that hard exterior and you start revealing this nice, funny sort of character who actually wants to help. Okay, and to the point where even Barrett warms up to him. So I think that wasn't very apparent in the original, and they did that right here. Okay, they show things like flash forwards. Okay, so things that are yet to come, and Cloud's the one having them, which is really strange. So I say it's really strange, but I think the whole point is Cloud's having them, but it's meant to be you, the player. That's what's going to happen. So Cloud's having them, and you kind of really know what's going to happen. So allowing fate to change, because one of the biggest asks back in the day was, can you revive Aerith, from the original. Allowing, killing fate and allowing the future to change makes Final Fantasy VII new and refreshing again. It means that the story can deviate from the original ever so slightly, or just enough to make it new again. And that's, I think, very important to the survival of the legacy of Final Fantasy VII. Now, I don't know where I heard this, but I heard that Nomura wanted to create his saga. I think it might be completely wrong, but I think he actually wants to redo Advent Children. Stop that from being canon. Almost just rework. This is how he envisioned the story of Final Fantasy VII, and so ultimately what you end up having is a completely different story. So you're going to have the compilation of Final Fantasy VII that you already know, and then you're going to have Nomura's alternate universe. And no one's ever attempted to do that. I can't think of any other franchise or game that's attempted to do that. Okay, change things. I know Nomura has a bit, he gets a bit, I don't know what drugs he takes, but he can go on a tangent, Kingdom Hearts series and all, to the point where it can get slightly daunting and almost ruin everything, no matter how good playing it might be. But the story is a bit all over the place, and a lot of people weren't satisfied with that ending. I get it, but I do have faith in Nomura that in the end Final Fantasy VII's story is already done. What he does now only can be used to enrich what we already know, and I think that's really important. I think that feeling positive for the future of Final Fantasy VII is how you should feel. It's alright to be a bit skeptic, don't get me wrong, I am too, slightly skeptical about what's going to happen, but not enough to make me feel worried, okay? Especially after what this remake has shown us, okay? We now have Wedge and Biggs are alive at the end, which is different. We could see something was already changing towards the end before even killing the Fates. Maybe they just couldn't control what was happening in that Shinra building. That's why they all accumulate around it, trying to stop certain characters from leaving. But I say Biggs is alive. I don't know about Wedge. Wedge was in the building and he was something happens and it just fades out. So I'm not sure if the Watchman effect got to him, and Biggs is the only one to survive somehow. Jesse, we see her die, unfortunately, but again, anything's possible, you know? Because generally all those three characters die when the plate falls. So to see them still alive after the plate falls, apart from Jesse, because I know Wedge goes on a little bit longer, like defying fate almost. That's what it feels like when you see Wedge alive again. Only for him to he makes it to the Shinra building to help Cloud and Co. And then we think he dies, but we don't know. He could very well still be alive. The man looks like he survives everything. Biggs was definitely a surprise. I didn't expect to see Biggs alive at the end, but awesome. Because it means these characters will still have a part to play, especially now. And even if it was just the side characters that stayed alive, that's amazing. That's just it doesn't mean that the main story is going to change. It just means there's going to be more to it. So good on them. I think it's brilliant that Square decided to mix things up again. You know, make it fresh again. Allow you to wonder what's going to happen next. That's the best feeling ever. What's going to happen in part 2? Okay. It would have been. I think that the separation. So we'll touch up on the whole separating the game into parts. I think that it needed to be done. It's not the same, you know. You can't. You could have. Yeah, sure. Maybe there is a way they could have incorporated a whole game of Final Fantasy VII into one. And I appreciate people might feel a bit cheated. They're only getting some of the experience. Oh, it should say part 1 on the box. I was like, it doesn't matter. No, that actually matters. It's not. They're not misselling the game. They've never really, from the very beginning, they said it was going to be in parts. So whether they put part 1 on the box or not doesn't really change the fact that it is just the portion of Midgar. But the fact that at the end of that Midgar portion, you feel like you've had a fully fledged Final Fantasy experience, which is how I feel. You know, I fought Jennifer. I fought Sephiroth, and I fought these fates, you know, and the way Sephiroth and Aerith talk about the future, the way they talk about things that happen or will happen or could happen, makes Final Fantasy VII world completely new to me, and I hope it makes the world completely new to you as well, because we need everyone, you know, we're all in the same boat now, old players, new players, fans, proper fans of Final Fantasy VII, you know, the ones that really were protective about the story. We're all in the same plate now. We're no longer separate. Yeah. So I hope that Square obviously do it justice. I have a strange feeling they will, if they put it as much work as they put on this one. I'm curious to see how they're going to do all the new stuff, but with the part 1, the Midgar portion of this game, playing through hard mode now, kind of halfway through, and I'm really enjoying it. It's actually almost slightly better. I feel like that's how the difficulty should have been designed from the original sort of standing, but then that could have been slightly difficult for anyone picking up the game to begin with. They did a very well-rounded effort to bring and to be faithful to the original, whilst at the same time looking at the future and making it bright, making it something to look forward to, and I think we should all look to the future and expect to see Final Fantasy VII Part 2 with open arms. Just accept it for what it is. I'm sure people are not going to like it, or maybe they are. Maybe it's not going to differ too much from what we expect, but the fact that there could be a change, that there is going to be change, makes it all new again. So all in all, story-wise, Final Fantasy VII Remake, brilliant. Loved it. Very unexpected ending. Very good ending though. Very good ending.
Nicely done. Here's your cut. You earned it.
On that note, I'm ending this review. Sorry it's gone on for long. I could keep on talking really. There's so much to talk about. I've just pretty much just spoke from whatever came to my mind and tried to like split it into 3 or 4 parts. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and come back again, visit my site, subscribe, and hope to see you guys soon.